I don't know what I expect from writing this. Maybe to get it off my chest. Maybe to be judged. Or maybe just to feel something, because for the past few months, all I've felt is confusion and guilt layered under a strange sense of relief. My name is Olivia, I'm 23 years old, and I was married to Billy, who is 25, for a year. We had been together for 2.5 years before that. It wasn't an ordinary relationship, it was international. We fought to make it work across borders, time zones, cultures, and families. We dealt with visa issues, video calls that ran all night, endless bureaucracy. He even learned my language. I was proud of him. I admired how committed he was. When we got married last summer, August 2024, I truly believed I had found my person. I took his last name. I cried during our vows. I used to call him my husband, my everything, without any hint of irony. I texted his friends just to tell them how happy he made me. I begged him to come live with me. I told him he was my soulmate. I meant it. Or at least, I thought I did. But something changed this year. I didn't see it clearly at first, I just felt it. A slow shift, like something beautiful turning gray. By March, things felt off. He had been away at some work camp. When he came back, he was different. Quieter. More withdrawn. It was like talking to a ghost version of him. He wasn't mean or unkind. He was just emotionally absent. Dry. I called it later. Like I was reaching out and touching cold glass. I didn't know what was going on with him. Not fully. He didn't tell me anything. No late-night calls. No emotional venting. No, this is what I'm going through. Just silence. It felt like he was slipping through my fingers, and I couldn't stop it. Then, in June, I visited his country. I thought maybe being face-to-face would fix things. Maybe the spark would return. But when I saw him, he didn't smile the same way. He didn't laugh the way he used to. He didn't even seem happy to see me. It was like he was performing, going through the motions. He held me, kissed me, but the warmth was gone. I tried. God, I tried to connect. We had fun moments, we took pictures, we went places. But something inside me felt hollow the whole time. It was like I was grieving the relationship even before it ended. I cried at the airport when I left. But I think deep down, I already knew I was crying for the us that didn't exist anymore. Back home, I tried to keep texting. But I started pulling away. I didn't have the energy to pretend. My messages became shorter. My replies slower. Until finally, I sent the message I had been dreading. My feelings disappeared in May. Even seeing you in person didn't bring them back. It shattered him. I know it did. I saw it in the way he responded, the pain in his words. But I had to be honest. He didn't take it well. He begged, pleaded, said he didn't want a divorce, said he still loved me. I told him I just needed to be let go. I needed space. I couldn't breathe in the weight of what we had become. I didn't tell him the full truth then. The full truth is that someone else had entered the picture. It wasn't planned. I didn't go looking for it. But when I started feeling emotionally starved, I found myself opening up to someone new. He was just a friend at first, funny, expressive, warm. He made me feel seen again. And then one day, we kissed. It just happened. I told my husband that, and I meant it. But it wasn't an accident. Not really. It was the result of 1,000 small moments where I stopped feeling connected to the man I married and started feeling alive around someone else. I'm not proud of it. But I also can't lie to myself and say I regret all of it. This new person, he made me laugh in ways I hadn't laughed in months. He met my friends. They adored him. I met his mom and his sister. It was like the universe had given me a fast-forward button to happiness. But I also know how cruel that must have felt to my husband, to go from being everything to being nothing in a matter of weeks. He doesn't know the full story yet. He still thinks I just fell out of love. He doesn't know I've already replaced him. After I sent that first message telling him my feelings had faded, I could feel his world collapsing in real time. His replies were desperate, filled with confusion, grief, and pain. He wanted answers I couldn't give, not because I didn't know them, but because I didn't know how to say them without sounding like a monster. I kept replaying my visit in June in my mind. Before the flight, I was nervous but hopeful. I told myself maybe I just needed to be with him again in person. Maybe physical closeness would light the emotional fire that had dimmed inside me. But the truth is, from the moment I saw him at the airport, something was off. He hugged me, but it didn't feel the same. His eyes were tired. His energy was drained. It wasn't that he didn't care. It felt like he was hollowed out, like someone who was fighting invisible demons. At the time, I didn't know what he was going through. Later, I would find out about everything: the false accusations, the doxing, the threats to his family, the mental breakdown, even the medication. But back then, I was clueless. All I saw was a man who used to be joyful, passionate, and expressive, now looking like he was just trying to survive the day. He barely smiled during our time together. I'd crack jokes, and he'd give me this half-laugh like he was forcing it for my sake. He barely looked at me the way he used to, that look of admiration, of excitement, of warmth. It was gone, and I couldn't pretend I didn't notice. The worst part? He never opened up. Not once did he sit me down and say, "Here's what's been happening. Here's why I'm distant." He kept everything bottled up. I tried to ask, I tried to connect, but he always brushed it off like he was trying to protect me. I know now that he was trying not to burden me, trying to shield me from the storm. But at the time, it just felt like I was being locked out. And so I started building my walls too. Even though we took pictures and had little fun moments, deep down I felt like I was walking through the ruins of our marriage. I couldn't see a future anymore. I didn't feel like a wife. I felt like a guest. Like someone just passing through a life that no longer fit me. When I left, I cried, but not because I was sad to leave him. I cried because I didn't know if I'd ever feel us again. A week later, I ghosted him emotionally. My messages became shorter. I didn't have it in me to fake it anymore. And when he noticed, he panicked. He sent me long messages. Said he was sorry for being cold. Asked if we could fix it. Said he'd do anything. But by then, something inside me had already shut off. I knew the version of him I fell in love with was still there, buried under layers of trauma and sadness, but I didn't have the strength or patience to wait for him to reappear. And while I was wrestling with that guilt, someone else had already started filling the space he left behind. At first, I didn't realize what was happening. The new guy, let's call him Tyler, was just a friend. A coworker I'd see occasionally, someone I felt comfortable around. He was silly, loud, emotionally available in ways my husband no longer was. He noticed when I was sad. He made me laugh. He asked questions and listened, really listened. I started texting him more often than my husband. I started sharing things with him that I used to only share with my partner. And then one night, it happened. The kiss. It wasn't planned. There wasn't build-up. It was one of those stupid, emotional moments. We were walking home, laughing about something dumb. He looked at me, said, "You're amazing," and kissed me before I could even process it. I didn't stop him. And I didn't tell my husband, not right away. I told myself it meant nothing. A mistake. A moment of weakness. But I'd be lying if I said it didn't awaken something I hadn't felt in a long time. I justified it in my head. He's not emotionally there for me. We're already falling apart. We haven't been close in months. But the truth is, I still hadn't officially ended things. I was still married. A few days later, I told my husband vaguely that something had happened. I said I kissed someone. I didn't give details. He was crushed. But I kept the conversation emotional, gentle. I didn't tell him I was already thinking about seeing this guy again. And when I did, it felt different. Tyler made me feel seen, like I mattered again. We weren't serious. Not yet, but I could feel myself letting go of my husband more with each passing day. I told myself I'd give it time. But in truth, I was already gone. I wish I could say I tried harder to resist what was coming next. I wish I could say I slowed things down, gave myself time to breathe, to grieve, to fully understand what I was doing. But I didn't. It's strange how quickly life can change, how love can shift, how loyalty can dissolve. One minute, I was waking up with the guilt of kissing someone who wasn't my husband, and the next, I was introducing him to my friends. His name is Tyler. He's loud, Wild, kind of ridiculous. He yells on the subway to make me laugh, holds my hand in public without hesitation, and spins me around like we're in some stupid rom-com. I hated that kind of stuff before, but with him, it felt freeing. I told my husband about him, eventually. I didn't just blurt it out. It came after weeks of emotional tug-of-war. I kept sending my husband long messages, trying to explain myself without actually explaining anything. I told him I felt like I was living a lie, that we weren't compatible anymore, that our values had grown apart. And then one night, I told him the truth. I have a new boyfriend. He's official. I told him Tyler had already met most of my friends, and that they all liked him. I told him I had already met Tyler's mom and sister. I told him we went out, held hands, kissed openly in public. I didn't say it to be cruel, but I knew it would hurt him. I just didn't want to keep lying. I think that was the moment it really broke him. Just 3 weeks before that, I had been in his country sleeping next to him. He had held me in his arms. I had kissed his cheek. I even said I wanted more photos of us together. I told him I still loved him. And now I was here, replacing him in my phone, in my heart, in the spaces where I used to say, my husband. He asked how I could move on so fast. How I could fall out of love that quickly and fall into love again even faster. And I didn't have an answer. I still don't. I think maybe the truth is I had already fallen out of love months ago. I just hadn't admitted it to myself yet. I wanted to feel alive again. I wanted someone who could match my energy. Someone who didn't shut down emotionally. Tyler was that. He didn't flinch when I cried. He didn't freeze up when I opened up. He pulled me closer when I felt insecure instead of pushing me away with silence. But in the back of my mind, guilt stayed like a shadow. I still wore the ring sometimes without thinking. I still checked my husband's Instagram. What was left of it after the social media mess. I still reread our old messages and looked at pictures from the wedding. It felt like mourning a person who is still alive. He didn't make it easy. He kept texting me, telling me he didn't want the divorce. That he still loved me. That he was willing to work through everything. That he understood now. That he could be better. That he wanted to fight for us. But I was already gone. Emotionally, mentally, romantically. I had already stepped into a new life, and part of me just wanted him to sign the papers and disappear. Not because I hated him, but because seeing his grief made me feel like a terrible human being. And maybe I am. I think about it more than I admit, how unfair I was. How I didn't give him a chance to explain. How I didn't ask what was going on when he went silent. How I didn't know his family was being threatened, or that he was drowning in mental health struggles, or that he didn't tell me because he was trying to protect me. But by the time I understood any of that, I was already someone else's girlfriend. I told myself I deserved happiness too. That I couldn't keep waiting in the shadows of someone else's storm. That I had the right to leave if I wasn't loved the way I needed to be. But now I wonder if I left too fast. If I moved on too quickly. If I betrayed someone who is quietly holding on to us while silently falling apart. Tyler's great. He makes me feel good. My friends say they've never seen me this light, this full of life. But sometimes, late at night, when it's quiet and no one's watching, I still think of the man I married. And I wonder if I became the villain in a story that started with love. It's hard to admit this, but I think I underestimated just how deeply I hurt him. After I told him about Tyler, about how he was now official, my ex-husband emotionally, if not legally, started spiraling. His messages became longer, more intense, more raw. You could almost feel the grief oozing out of the words, like he was pouring everything he had left into trying to understand what had just happened. He kept asking, how could you fall in love again so fast? Was any of it ever real? Did you ever really love me? I didn't know how to answer. I didn't know how to say, yes, I did love you, without sounding like a liar. Because what kind of love evaporates this quickly? What kind of wife says, I love you 1 month and is in another man's arms the next? But I wasn't lying. At least I didn't think I was. I think I loved him with everything I had back then. But when things got hard, when he pulled away, when he went emotionally numb, I didn't know how to stay anchored. I drifted. And maybe I didn't fight hard enough to pull us back. He kept saying, "You skipped the grieving part. You just moved on like I never existed." He wasn't wrong. While I was going on dates, laughing with Tyler, sharing playlists and weekend plans, he was taking medication just to get out of bed. While I was meeting someone else's family, he was losing pieces of his identity, wondering what he did wrong. While I was feeling free, he was falling apart. And I couldn't even bring myself to comfort him. It wasn't because I didn't care. It was because the guilt was unbearable. Every time I saw his name light up on my phone, a pit formed in my stomach. I avoided opening his messages sometimes for hours, even days. Not because I didn't want to talk to him, but because I didn't want to face the mirror of his grief. It reminded me of what I had done. The day he told me he still hadn't filed for divorce, I froze. It was like he still had hope, like some tiny part of him still believed we could fix this. And that terrified me, because I had already emotionally filed the papers in my heart weeks ago. I told him again that I didn't want to hurt him anymore, that he needed to let me go, that we were on different paths. I used every soft, careful phrase I could think of to say it's over without saying, "You've already been replaced." But I knew the reality was uglier than the words I typed. He wasn't sleeping. He wasn't eating. He was isolating himself. And I was going out for coffee with Tyler. I hate myself for it sometimes. There were moments, random, quiet moments, where a wave of shame would hit me out of nowhere. Like when I saw a couple on the street laughing like we used to. Or when I pulled out an old hoodie of his I hadn't thrown away yet. Or when I realized I still had the wedding photos saved in a hidden album on my phone. I thought I was doing the mature thing, choosing what made me happy, not dragging out a dead relationship. But now I wonder, was I just taking the easy road? Was I using Tyler as a soft landing so I wouldn't have to feel the fall? People talk about cheating like it's a moment, a kiss, a lie, a betrayal. But for me, it wasn't a moment. It was a slow slide down a slippery slope of emotional neglect, unmet needs, and poor decisions. And by the time I realized what I was doing, I had already burned the bridge behind me. Now I see my ex-husband through a different lens, not the emotionally distant, disconnected man I used to resent, but someone who is fighting silent battles I never took the time to see. Someone who needed help, not abandonment. Someone who tried to protect me by not dragging me into his darkness, and in return, I punished him for not letting me in. And that thought, that's the one that keeps me up at night. I've been living this new life for a while now. The one I traded my marriage for. The one where I laugh easily, where I kiss someone new in public, where I'm surrounded by friends who say, "You seem so much happier." And maybe they're right. But some nights, after the noise fades and I'm alone, I wonder if happier just means numb with distractions. Tyler is wonderful in so many ways. He's affectionate, fun, emotionally present in ways my husband hadn't been for months. He shows me off, plans weekends, sings in the car, texts me good morning and good night every day without fail. But sometimes, when I look at him, a strange emptiness flickers in the back of my chest. Like there's a ghost in the room. A version of me that still exists somewhere else, in a different home, next to a man I once promised forever to. That version of me is quiet now. But she never really left. I still remember the way my husband looked at me when he was excited, how his eyes would widen like a child's. I remember the awkward, fumbling way he used to dance around the kitchen. The way he whispered, "You're my home," when he thought I was asleep. I wonder if he still says my name out loud. Or if he's finally stopped looking for me in the faces of strangers. He doesn't message me anymore. The last time he reached out was weeks ago. A short, polite text asking if I needed anything before he finalized the divorce papers. I stared at it for 10 minutes before replying, "No, I'm okay." But the truth? I don't know if I am. I thought I was making a choice for myself. I thought I was claiming my happiness. But maybe what I was really doing was running. Running from discomfort. From the hard part of love. From the ugly seasons that require patience, communication, and emotional courage. I told myself he had become dry. Distant. That he didn't fight for me. That he shut me out. And he did. But I never knocked on the door either. I let his silence justify my escape. I let my loneliness become permission for betrayal. And worst of all, I convinced myself that moving on quickly made me strong. Now I'm not sure it made me anything other than selfish. Tyler doesn't know the full story. Not really. He knows I was married, knows it ended messy, but he doesn't know how fast I left, or how cruel I was in the way I did it. He doesn't know that I slept beside my husband just 3 weeks before our first kiss. He doesn't know that some nights, even in his arms, I dream of the man I left behind. I used to think closure meant cutting ties, starting over, erasing the past like it was just a bad chapter. But now I realize closure is accepting that sometimes you're the villain in someone else's story. And that maybe, no matter how brightly the sun shines in your new beginning, the shadow of what you destroyed never really disappears. I don't know if I regret replacing him, or if the truth is uglier, that maybe I never understood love the way I thought I did.